I think we
Sorry?
had this discussion before. One of the purposes, and this was actually confirmed. Well, that's something I said many years ago. I said that try to put fresh patents on top of the interface, so any person who uses that is then entangled by something whose expiry date is a lot far ahead. And this was confirmed by Rob Weir, who is the main person in IBM who deals with formats, at least with ODF. He actually said that himself. About a month and a half ago. So the notion is they try to change something for the sake of actually having more ownership of the so-called idea of having the ribbon.
I think also maybe from what I've seen of it, it did seem to me to be very much something else to tout new versions so people would dip into their pockets and actually spend money on an upgrade for something that they maybe didn't need. Because really, as we've already sort of established, the requirements of an office suite for many people are very simple and pretty much the same. So in order to get people keep on buying the product, then you have to dress it up.
They shift to rent. So the notion of actually trying to buy Windows or Office, first of all, they have to read the end user, well, it's the license agreement. That's the ULA. And they have to realize that the software is being, so they call it licensed, which is a way of saying, well, we rent you the software, or we rent you the binary, or allow you to run the binary for some period of time. And you don't actually buy the software. It's not yours. You cannot do what you want with it. Because, well, you could change the zeros and ones, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to blow up the whole thing. So nothing's going to work because you have no source code. The thing that happens here is, and people actually compare it to different types of businesses. They have established a kind of a nice franchise for themselves, where lots of people are forced to get a computer with a rented version of Windows, and every once in a while, every few years, they have to renew the rental. They have to rent the next version of Windows, and other people will have peer pressure forcing them in some sense to get compatible with everyone else, and that this they will do by basically paying for Windows again and again. Every version comes out, and they have to do the same thing for Office. I think these are the main two products, unless you're kind of server side. I suppose some people use some other programs from Microsoft, but they don't bring quite as much money.
Well, I've got a feeling we might have Gordon back again in full quality. So, Gordon, are you with us in HD format?
Well, we'll call it VHS at the moment. Hang on, we've come through the tunnel. That's fine. I don't want to tempt fate, but we appear to be back.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to have to listen to the show back because I have no idea of what was said other than what I said in the last 15 or 20 minutes or so. So,
well, if it's any consolation, you came out very clear. So, and it was very relevant, and it wasn't repeating what we'd already said. So, you were spot on. If both of you are happy, what we'll do while Roy and ourselves were discussing about open systems and open formats, we'll move on to my next quick one. And hopefully I'll get a comment from both yourself and Roy in regards to this, because it's a subject that I've been keeping on top of over the last few weeks. And that's a Sony solution for the rootkey hack to their PlayStation 3. For anybody that doesn't know, and I'm sure 99% of the people have already heard this, Sony's system was busted open by a hacker who was able to crack the encrypted rootkey, allowing some with the games industry would tell you pirated software to be played on the system. What isn't mentioned is the fact that opening up the system this way would open up the PS3 to homebrew software. It'd allow people to be creative on it. And I think when you look at computers like the Amiga and Atari ST, having a more open system, or even the Super Magicom for the Super Nintendo, having a more open system allow people to be creative. And we saw some things that you never would have seen under normal circumstances had the company been allowed to keep control over their hardware. Now, apparently, Sony's had a few ideas for solving this problem, and one of which is going to be some type of copy protection like we see on PC games, where a serial number is entered and it's registered with a server online. This is one of the solutions rumoured by TechEye, quite a good website which covers these type of issues, which for me opened up a whole can of worms. I don't know about
It's called copy protection for some
Yeah.
reason, which is a kind
Yeah,
of
well,
an interesting term to use.
well, I mean, I know, obviously we said before we have very different views on proprietary software, and but if we look at the console market itself, certainly for myself and my family, the idea that you just plug in and play a game is probably the main appeal of the console. There's no installing, there's no patches for if you happen to have a graphics card which comes from the planet Vulcan from the year 2055, because it's the same hardware and you just throw the disc in and everybody's got the same equipment at home, so there's no issues for the coders as far as that's concerned, and it makes the experience very simple. I think if Sony start introducing a more PC way of dealing with copy protection, as Roy says, then I think you sort of take away the ease and the convenience of the market of the console itself. What's more worrying though is that this type of key sort of serial number registration could have a damaging effect on the pre-owned ex-rental market. I hope nobody accuses me of being cheap, but I refuse to pay £40 for a brand new title when it comes out in the shops. I don't care what game it is. It's £40 for me is not. I'm not able to justify that. So what I'll do is I invariably wait until a couple of months down the line it turns up in Blockbuster or Game or one of the other shops that sell pre-owned titles, and it's usually about at least half the price, if not more. Now, if this serial key scheme comes to pass, it's apparently going to give a set number of times where you can enter the key, and obviously if it's a pre-owned title, that could completely destroy any chance of reselling selling the game, which one of my readers to my site suggests could be the real intention behind it, because whilst piracy is blamed for being the big evil in society and it's what ruins the profits of games companies, if you think about it, if you look at the popularity of the pre-owned market, the software companies probably lose just as much, because once the item is originally sold, I don't suppose they get any further profit from the game if it's resold on, then resold on again. And some of these pre-owned titles could have been sold 3 or 4 times over. You just don't know.
So the question is, will people who buy them second hand, would they have bought the full, would they have bought as many games and buy them at the full price? So the notion of lost sale is an interesting one. So usually you actually check if these are your customers, or maybe these are people who could actually recommend it to a real customer, people who would never have bought your game in the first place. The one thing I wanted to mention is that with Sony, when it comes to them being quite draconian with, copyrights and things like that, you have to remember this is one of the funders of the MPAA, RAA, and all these companies, because Sony is also a media company or a recording company which distributes lots of CDs. So,
I mean, I've been on my site. I do have a I won't use the word love because that'd be a wrong word, but I do have an appreciation of Sony products. I've been very happy with the ones I've had. What I would say though is that Sony, for me, made a very bad decision quite a while ago when they removed the ability to install Linux on the PlayStation 3 console. That did not sit very well with myself, and in a sort of response to this whole allegation of the root key being cracked, it now appears that Sony's released a patch, which I just got night before last, 3.56, which was the upgrade to the system software. So it might be that that particular security patch has managed to somehow alleviate the issue of the exposed root key. So time will tell. But what I would say, just in closing, whilst obviously anybody that doesn't have a PS3 might not see this as an issue, you can guarantee that should this scheme work and should Sony implement a type of registration key and effectively hobble the pre-owned market, you can bet your bottom dollar that Nintendo and Microsoft will follow suit, and we'll have exactly the same thing with them. Because I'm convinced that whilst piracy, in inverted commas, is blamed for the loss of profits of a computer game developing firm, I think that it's a pre-owned market which is responsible for a large amount. People that do want to have the original game but don't want to pay the extortionate, in my opinion, £40 price tag that comes with it. I know kids get a lot more pocket money these days, but I don't think it's enough to buy the latest games on the day they come out brand new.
That's in addition to actually having to rent the console, because when you think about what happens with the console when you cannot do things to it, or when you get sued, for just modifying your thing, that sends out the message. You don't actually own your equipment, which you pay for. You just pay for rental of the machine that's going to be capable of playing very specific games, which you have to buy at full price. So increasingly,